What's the one thing you could do right now to change the outcome of your next argument, your next decision, your next moment of pressure? Raise your hand if you've ever reacted in a way you later regretted. Come on, be honest. We've all been there. That sharp word to a loved one, that hasty choice that cost you more than you bargained for, that split second where anger or fear took the wheel. But what if I told you there's a secret to turning those moments into opportunities for strength, clarity, and control? It's not about suppressing your emotions or pretending they don't exist. It's about mastering the space between what happens to you and what you choose to do next. That's space, my friends, and it's the most powerful tool you'll ever hold. Think about a time when everything hung in the balance. Maybe someone criticized your work in front of a room full of colleagues. Your face got hot, your pulse raced, and every fiber of your being wanted to fire back. Or maybe it was quieter, a child's tantrum testing your patience, a spouse's comment that hit a nerve. In those moments, the world seems to demand an instant response. Society tells us to act fast, to defend ourselves, to prove we're strong. But strength isn't in the reaction. Strength is in the gas shoes, where you decide who you are. It's where you choose whether to be a slave to your impulses or the architect of your future. Let me paint a picture with a story. There was a man named Thomas, a factory worker with a quick temper. One day his supervisor chewed him out over a mistake that wasn't even his. The old Thomas would have exploded, yelled, quit, or worse. But something had shifted in him. He'd been practicing this idea of pausing, something he learned after years of regret. So he took a breath, counted to 5 in his head, and said, "I hear you. Let me look into this and get back to you." That saved his job. More than that, it earned him respect. His supervisor later apologized, and Thomas was promoted within a year. Why? Because he showed he could handle pressure without crumbling. That's the power of It's not just a moment of silence, it's a moment of control. Now you might be thinking, sure, that sounds nice, but how do I do it when my blood's boiling? Fair question. It isn't about being a robot or ignoring your feelings. It's about giving yourself a split second to choose. Your emotions are like a horse, powerful, wild, and capable of carrying you far. But without a rider, that horse will run you into a ditch. He is the rider. It's that says, "I feel this, but I'm bigger than this." And it starts with something as simple as your breath. Right now, try it with me. Inhale for 4 seconds. Hold it for 4. Exhale for 4. Do it. Feel that. That's you taking the reins. That's you creating space to think, to choose, to win. Let's talk about why this matters. Every day life throws something at you. A rude driver, a missed deadline, a friend who lets you down. If you react to every one of those with the first thing that pops into your head, you're not living, you're just surviving. You're letting the world dictate your mood, your decisions, your destiny. I knew a woman named Sarah, a single mother of 2. Her kids were her world, but they could push her buttons like nobody else. One evening her teenage son stormed in, slammed the door, and shouted something hurtful. Sarah's instinct was to shout back, to match his fire with her own, but she'd been burned by those fights before. So she walked to the kitchen, poured a glass of water, and sipped it slowly. She remembered her son was struggling at school, feeling lost. Instead of yelling, she sat him down and said, "Talk to me. What's going on?" That conversation changed their relationship. It isn't magic, but it's close. It's a skill, and like any skill, it takes practice. Start small. Next time someone cuts you off in traffic, don't honk or curse. Take a breath and ask yourself, is this worth my energy? When your boss sends a frustrating email, don't hit reply right away. Step away. Walk around. Let your mind settle. These little add up. They're like deposits in a bank account of self-control. Over time, they grow into something substantial, something that lets you handle bigger storms with the same calm dot. Now, let's get real for a second. Pausing doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean you're dodging conflict or letting people walk over you. In fact, it's the opposite. It takes guts to hold back when every part of you wants to lash out. It takes courage to say, "I'm not going to let this moment define me." Think of life like a chess game. The best players don't move impulsively. They study the board. They think 3 steps ahead, and they act with purpose. your strategy. It's you looking at the board of your life and saying, I'm playing to win, not to react. Here's a tool to make it practical. I call it the 3 question. When something triggers you, ask yourself 3 things. What am I feeling right now? What's the cost of reacting? What's the reward of staying calm? Let's say your coworker takes credit for your idea. You're furious. Question 1. I'm feeling angry and betrayed. Question 2. If I snap at them, I might look petty and it could hurt my reputation. Question 3. If I stay calm, I can address this professionally and build my credibility. Those questions take 10 seconds, but they can change the entire trajectory of your day. I want to share another story because stories stick with us. There was an athlete named Marcus, a sprinter with Olympic dreams. During a crucial race, a rival taunted him at the starting line, questioning his ability. Marcus felt the sting, the urge to prove himself right there. But he'd trained for more than speed. He'd trained his mind. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and focused on the race ahead. He didn't say a word. When the gun fired, Marcus ran like the wind. He didn't just win the race, he set a personal record. Later his rival admitted, I was trying to throw you off. Marcus smiled and said, you almost did. His didn't just win a race, it won him respect, focus, and a shot at his dream. What's the cost of not pausing? Let's not sugarcoat it. Every time you react without thinking, you pay a price. Maybe it's a strained relationship, a missed opportunity, or just the weight of regret. I knew a man who lost a business deal because he couldn't hold his tongue during a heated negotiation. One impulsive comment, and the client walked away. He told me later, if I'd just taken a second to think, I'd have seen they were testing me. That's the tragedy of reaction. It feels right in the moment, but it leaves you picking up the pieces. On the flip side, what's the reward of pausing? It's freedom. Freedom from being jerked around by every emotion, every slight, every challenge. It's the ability to walk into a room and know you're in charge. Not because you're the loudest, but because you're the steadiest. It's the confidence that comes from knowing you can handle anything. Life throws at you, and it's not just about you. It affects everyone around you. When you stay calm, you give others permission to do the same. You become a beacon of stability in a world that's often chaotic. Let's try something together. Think of a situation in your life right now where you're tempted to react. Maybe it's a family member who keeps pushing your buttons, a coworker who's slacking, or a goal that's not going your way. Got it in your mind? Now I want you to commit to one the next time it happens. Just one. Before you speak, before you act, take a breath and ask yourself, what's my best move here? Write it down if you can. That commitment is your first step. It's you saying, I'm not just going to react, I'm going to choose. The beauty of the is that it's always there, waiting for you to claim it. It doesn't care if you're young or old, rich or poor, in a boardroom or a living room. It's a universal tool, and it's free, but it's not easy. It takes discipline, awareness, and a willingness to be different. Most people don't. Most people react, and they spend their lives cleaning up the mess. But you're not most people. You're here because you want more. More control, more peace, more impact. And it all starts with that tiny, powerful space between what happens and what you do next. Now you might be wondering, why do I react the way I do? Why is it so hard to sometimes? That's a great question, and it's worth digging into. Our reactions aren't random. They come from somewhere. They're tied to our habits, our experiences, the things that shaped us. To master the S, you've got to understand what's driving you to react in the first place. Let's talk about that next, because knowing your triggers is the key to rewriting your responses. Why do you snap when someone cuts you off in traffic? Why does a certain tone from a coworker make your blood boil? Raise your hand if you've ever felt a reaction bubble up inside you and wondered, where did that come from? Come on, we've all got those moments. The truth is, your reactions aren't random. They're like footprints leading back to something specific. Your triggers, those hidden switches in your mind, that when flipped, send you spiraling into anger,
fear, or frustration.
To master the we talked about, to take control of that space between what happens and what you do, you've got to know what's pulling your strings. Understanding your triggers isn't just about avoiding blow-ups. It's about rewriting the story of how you show up in the world. Let's start with a story. There was a woman named Elena, a school teacher with a heart of gold, but a temper that could flare like a match. One day a student rolled their eyes during her lesson, and Elena lost it, snapped in front of the whole class. Later she felt awful. Why did that one gesture set her off? She started digging. Turns out that eye roll took her back to her childhood, to a father who dismissed her dreams with the same gesture. That student didn't just disrespect her. They hit a nerve tied to years of feeling unheard. Once Elena saw that, she could catch herself. The next time a student pushed her buttons, she recognized the trigger and chose to respond with calm. That's the power of knowing what's behind your reactions. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. You see the obstacles before you trip. So what are triggers? They're the sore spots in your soul, the places where life has left a mark. Maybe it's criticism that stings because you grew up hearing you weren't good enough. Maybe it's failure that sends you into a tailspin because you've tied your worth to success. Or maybe it's rejection that makes you shut down because you've been hurt before. These triggers are shaped by your past, your family, your experiences, the way you've learned to survive. But here's the good news: just because they're part of your story doesn't mean they have to write your future. You can learn to spot them, name them, and choose a different path. Let's try something right now. Think of a moment when you reacted in a way that surprised you. Maybe you yelled at your kid, stormed out of a meeting, or clammed up when you should have spoken. Got it? Now ask yourself, what was it about that moment that hit me so hard? Was it the words, the tone, the situation? Write it down if you can. That's you starting to map your triggers. It's like drawing a treasure map, but instead of gold, you're finding the keys to your freedom. I knew a man named David, a salesman who could charm anyone, except when he felt ignored. If a client didn't return his calls, he'd spiral into frustration, firing off sharp emails or giving up entirely. One day he sat down and asked himself why. He realized it wasn't just about the client. Growing up, his parents were always too busy to listen, and being ignored made him feel invisible. That realization was a game changer. David started noticing when that old feeling crept in. Instead of reacting, he'd remind himself he wasn't that kid anymore, and reach out to the client with patience. His sales skyrocketed, but more importantly, he felt at peace. That's what happens when you understand your triggers. You stop fighting shadows and start living in the light. Now you might be thinking, okay, but how do I find these triggers? It's not like they come with a label. Fair point. Triggers are sneaky. They hide in the heat of the moment, disguised as righteous anger or justified fear, but they leave clues. Your body's a great detective. Racing heart, tight chest, clenched jaw. Those are signals something's been touched. Your thoughts are another clue. If you're thinking, how dare they, or I'm such a failure, that's your trigger talking. And your habits, they're the biggest giveaway. If you always lash out when someone questions you, or always withdraw when you're criticized, that's a pattern. Patterns point to triggers. Here's a tool to get you started: the trigger journal. For 1 week, every time you feel a strong emotion, anger, sadness, fear, write down 3 things. What happened? What did I feel? What did I do? Maybe your spouse forgot an anniversary. You felt hurt, and you gave them the silent treatment. Or your boss overlooked you for a project. You felt worthless, and you worked late to prove yourself. Those notes are gold. They show you where your triggers live. And once you see them, you can start to change how you respond. Let's talk about why this matters. If you don't know your triggers, you're like a ship without a rudder, tossed by every wave. Life will keep hitting those sore spots, and you'll keep reacting the same way, hurting yourself, hurting others, or missing chances to grow. I knew a woman named Carla, an entrepreneur with big dreams, but a habit of shutting down under pressure. Deadlines, tough clients, even small setbacks would make her freeze. She thought it was just stress, but when she looked closer, she saw it was fear of not being enough, rooted in years of comparing herself to others. Once she named that trigger, she could face it. She started small, pausing before a big meeting to remind herself, I'm prepared and I'm enough. That shift didn't just save her business, it gave her confidence she'd never had. Triggers aren't just personal, they're universal. Criticism is a big one. Who here's felt that sting when someone points out a flaw? Show of hands. Yeah, we've all been there. Criticism hits because it feels like an attack on who we are. But what if it's not? What if it's just information? So the next time someone critiques you, try this, take a breath, and ask, what can I learn from this? That question flips the script. It turns a trigger into a teacher. Failure's another trigger. Nobody likes to mess up, But for some of us, it's like a punch to the gut. Why? Because we've tied our value to our victories. I knew a young man named Jamal, a college student who bombed a big exam. He was ready to drop out, convinced he wasn't cut out for school. But he had a mentor who asked him, "Why does this one test feel like the end of the world?" Jamal realized he'd grown up in a home where mistakes were shameful. That was his trigger. With that insight, he could reframe failure as part of learning. He studied harder, aced the next exam, and graduated with honors. His trigger didn't disappear, but he learned to dance with it. Rejection's a tough one too. It's that moment when someone says no and it feels like they're saying, "You're not enough." I knew a writer named Lisa who stopped submitting her work after a few rejections. She thought she was protecting herself, but she was letting her trigger win. One day she started tracking her reactions. She saw that every no took her back to being the kid who never got picked for the team. That was her aha moment. She started pausing before reading rejection letters, reminding herself, this is about the work, not me. She kept submitting, and her first book got published last year. That's what understanding your triggers can do. It opens doors you thought were locked. Now let's get practical. Beyond journaling, there's another way to spot your triggers. Ask the people who know you best. Your spouse, your friends, your coworkers. They see your patterns. Be brave and say, "What do you notice about how I react under stress?" It's not easy, but their answers can shine a light on blind spots. I knew a man named Tom, a manager who thought he was calm under pressure. His team disagreed. They told him he got short-tempered when plans changed. Tom was stunned, but he listened. He started watching for that trigger, unplanned changes, and practiced pausing to reset. His team noticed the difference, and so did his career. Here's another trick. Look at your heroes. Who do you admire for their calm, their strength? Maybe it's a leader, a parent, or even a character from a story. What do they do when their buttons are pushed? I bet they know their triggers. You can borrow their playbook. Study how they handle criticism, failure, or rejection. Then try it yourself. It's like learning a new language. One word at a time, one at a time. Let's talk about the cost of ignoring your triggers. Every time you react without understanding why, you're giving away your power. You're letting old wounds, old habits, old stories run the show. It's like driving with a blindfold on. You might get somewhere, but you're just as likely to crash. Unchecked triggers can strain marriages, derail careers, and steal your peace. I knew a couple, Maria and Alex, who fought constantly over small things. Maria would nag, Alex would shut down, and round they went. When they finally sat down to talk, they realized their triggers were clashing. Maria's fear of being ignored, Alex's fear of being controlled. Once they saw that, they could talk it out and rebuild. Their marriage isn't perfect, but it's stronger because they stopped reacting and started understanding. On the other hand, what's the reward of knowing your triggers? It's like gaining a superpower. You see the world clearer. You stop taking things personally. You start choosing responses that align with who you want to be, and you become a magnet for trust and respect. People notice when you don't fly off the handle, when you listen instead of argue, when you stay steady in a storm. That's not just emotional control. That's leadership. Whether you're running a company or a household. Let quotes try one more exercise. Think of someone in your life who triggers you. A parent, a sibling, a coworker. What is it about them that gets under your skin? Is it their words, their attitude, their actions? Now go one step further. Why does that bother you? Does it remind you of something from your past? Write it down, or just hold it in your mind. That's you shining a light on your trigger. And the next time that person pushes your buttons, you'll be ready. You'll remember and you'll choose. The beauty of this work is that it's yours. No one can take it from you. Your triggers are part of your story, but they don't have to be the whole book. By understanding them, you're not just avoiding reactions, you're building a life of purpose, clarity, and strength. And that takes us to the next step. Knowing your triggers is powerful, but it's not enough. You've got to strengthen your ability to handle them, to build habits that make you unshakable. That's where real resilience comes in. And that's what we're going to talk about next. What would your life look like if you could face any challenge, criticism, failure, rejection, and stay steady as a rock? Raise your hand if you've ever wished you could keep your cool no matter what life throws at you. We've talked about mastering to create space for choice and understanding your triggers to know why you react. But knowing isn't enough to truly control your emotions. You need to build strength, emotional muscle that holds you up when the world tries to knock you down. This isn't about being unbreakable. It's about being resilient, about bending without breaking, about turning life's storms into chances to grow. Let's talk about the tools and habits that make you unshakable, so you can live with confidence, clarity, and purpose. Think of your emotions like a river. Sometimes it's calm, sometimes it's a raging torrent. Resilience is the dam you build, not to stop the water, but to direct it, to use its power without letting it flood your life. And that dam is built brick by brick, habit by habit. One of the most powerful bricks is meditation. Now, before you roll your eyes, hear me out. Meditation isn't about sitting cross-legged on a mountain. It's about training your mind to focus, to quiet the noise, to give you control. I knew a man named Robert, a firefighter, who saw things that would haunt anyone. The stress was eating him alive. Sleepless nights, short fuse. Then he started meditating, just 5 minutes a day, focusing on his breath. It wasn't magic, but it was close. He could walk into a burning building and keep his head clear. He could come home and be present with his kids. That's resilience, and it started with a simple habit. Try this right now. Close your eyes for 10 seconds and focus on your breath. Just the air moving in and out. Go ahead, do it. Feel that stillness. That's your mind learning to anchor itself. Start with 5 minutes a day. Sit quietly, breathe, and when your thoughts wander, bring them back. It's like lifting weights for your brain. Over time, you'll notice you're less rattled by small things, more grounded when triggers hit. That's you building the dam, one breath at a time. Another brick is gratitude. Sounds simple, but it's a game changer. When you focus on what's good in your life, you starve the negative emotions that fuel impulsive reactions. I knew a woman named Anita, a nurse who worked grueling shifts. She was burned out, snapping at her family, feeling like life was against her. Then she started a gratitude journal. Every night she wrote 3 things she was thankful for: a kind word from a patient, a warm meal, her daughter's laugh. It shifted her perspective. She still had tough days, but she stopped letting them define her. Her journal was her lifeline, pulling her back to what mattered. Let's do this together. Think of one thing you're grateful for right now. Maybe it's the person sitting next to you, a goal you're chasing, or just the fact that you're here, learning to grow. Got it? Hold on to that feeling. Make it a habit. Every morning or night, write down 3 things that bring you joy or hope. It's not about ignoring the bad. It's about balancing the scales. Gratitude doesn't just make you feel good. It rewires your brain to see possibilities instead of problems. Physical exercise is another tool, and it's not just about your body. Moving your body moves your emotions. When you're stressed, your body holds on to that energy. Tight shoulders, clenched fists. Exercise releases it. I knew a man named Carlos, a single dad who felt like he was drowning in responsibility. He started running, just 20 minutes a day. It wasn't about getting in shape. It was about clearing his head. When his kids tested his patience, he'd go for a run, come back and handle things with calm. Exercise was his reset button. You don't need a gym. Walk, dance, do push-ups in your living room. The point is to move, to let your body help your mind. Here's a challenge. For the next week, commit to moving your body every day, even for 10 minutes. Notice how you feel afterward. Do you feel lighter, clearer? That's your emotions finding an outlet that doesn't hurt you or anyone else. It's you building resilience, one step at a time. Now, let's talk about perspective. Resilience isn't just about habits, it's about how you see the world. Your perspective is like a lens. Clean it, and everything looks clearer. One way to do that is to focus on your long-term goals over short-term feelings. I knew a woman named Priya, an entrepreneur whose business was struggling. Every setback felt personal, and she'd lash out or give up. Then she started asking herself, does this matter in 5 years? That question was her anchor. A rude client, not worth her energy. A failed pitch, a chance to learn. By keeping her eyes on her big dream, building a legacy for her family, she could let go of small frustrations. That's perspective at work. Try this. Write down one goal that matters to you. Maybe it's being a better parent, advancing your career, or finding peace. Keep it somewhere you can see it. A note on your fridge, a card in your wallet. When something triggers you, look at that goal and ask, Will reacting help me get there? That's you choosing the long game over the short fuse. It's you building a life that aligns with what matters most. Another perspective shifter is what I call response rehearsal. Think of it like practicing a play before the big show. Athletes do it. Musicians do it. Why not you? Imagine a situation that triggers you, say a coworker who interrupts you constantly. Before it happens, rehearse your response. Picture yourself pausing, smiling, and saying, "I'd like to finish my thought." Practice it in your mind, or even out loud. I knew a teacher named Mark who used this to handle disruptive students. He'd visualize staying calm, redirecting their energy. When the real moment came, he was ready. His classroom became a place of respect, not chaos. Rehearsal turns your triggers into opportunities to shine. Let's make it real. Think of one trigger you identified earlier, maybe criticism or rejection. Right now, close your eyes and imagine that moment happening. See yourself pausing, breathing, and responding with strength. What do you say? How do you stand? Do it in your mind. That's you training for resilience. Do it enough, and it becomes second nature. Another tool is what I call emotional budgeting. Just like you budget your money, budget your emotional energy. You only have so much to spend each day. If you give it all to every annoyance, a rude cashier, a missed bus, you're bankrupt by noon. Save your energy for what matters. I knew a man named Jamal, a community leader who dealt with constant conflict. He used to react to every slight, every argument. Then he started budgeting his emotions. He'd ask, "Is this worth my peace?" Most things weren't. He saved his energy for his mission, helping kids in his neighborhood. That focus made him a force, respected by everyone. That's emotional budgeting, spending your heart where it counts. Here's how to start. At the beginning of each day, decide what deserves your emotional energy. Maybe it's your family, your work, your growth. When something tries to pull you off track, and ask, "Is this on my budget?" If not, let it go. It's not about being cold. It's about being strategic. You're choosing to invest in what builds your life, not what tears it down. Let's talk about stories, because they ground us. There was a soldier named Aisha who came back from deployment, carrying more than her gear. She carried trauma, loud noises, crowded places. Even a raised could send her into a panic. She didn't want to live like that. So she built a routine: morning meditation to center herself, evening walks to release tension, and a journal to track her triggers. She also worked with a counselor to reframe her perspective, to see challenges as tests of her strength. It wasn't easy, but over time she could face crowds, handle noise, even laugh again. Aisha's resilience didn't erase her past. It gave her a future. That's what these tools can do. They don't change what happened, but they change what's possible. Another story: a single parent named Luis, raising 3 kids while working 2 jobs. He was exhausted, and his patience was paper thin. One day his youngest broke a lamp, and Luis almost lost it. But he'd been practicing. He took a breath, went for a quick walk around the block, and came back to talk it out. He started small habits: stretching in the morning, writing one thing he was proud of each night. Those habits were his armor. They didn't make life easy, but they made him strong enough to handle it. His kids noticed too. They started mimicking his calm. That's resilience rippling outward. Let's try one more exercise. I want you to commit to one habit this week. Maybe it's 5 minutes of meditation, a gratitude list, or a daily walk. Pick one, write it down, and tell someone you trust to hold you accountable. Raise your hand if you're in. Good. That's you laying the first brick in your dam. Do it for a week, then add another. That's how resilience grows, not in big leaps, but in small, steady steps. Now let's talk about the cost of not building these habits. If you don't strengthen your emotional core, life will wear you down. Every trigger will hit harder. Every setback will feel bigger. You'll spend your days reacting, apologizing, or just surviving. I knew a man who lost his marriage because he never learned to manage his anger. He'd blow up, regret it, promise to change, but without habits he couldn't. That's the tragedy of staying weak. You want to be better? But wanting isn't enough. You need tools, systems, discipline. The reward, though, it's freedom. Freedom to face life's challenges without crumbling. Freedom to choose your response, to live by your values, to be the person you admire. Resilience doesn't make life perfect. It makes you unstoppable. People notice too, your calm becomes their anchor. Your strength becomes their inspiration. You become a leader, not because you're loud, but because you're steady. One more tool, self-talk. The way you talk to yourself shapes your resilience. If you're saying, "I can't handle this," you're right. If you say, "I'm stronger than this moment," you're right too. I knew a woman named Rachel, a recovering addict, who fought every day to stay sober. Her triggers were everywhere. Stress, loneliness, doubt. She started a habit of self-talk, repeating, "I'm enough and I'm in control." It sounded silly at first, but it became her shield. When temptation hit, say her mantra and choose her next step. She's been sober for 10 years. That's the power of words you give yourself. Try it now. Think of a phrase that lifts you up. "I'm steady. I choose my path. Whatever feels right." Say it in your mind. That's your building your strength. Use it when triggers hit, when doubt creeps in. It's you reminding yourself who you are. The beauty of resilience is that it's not a gift. It's a skill. You don't need to be born with it. You build it day by day, habit by habit. Meditation, gratitude, exercise, perspective, rehearsal, budgeting, self-talk. These are your tools. They're not fancy, but they're powerful. They're you saying, "I'm not just surviving, I'm thriving." And that strength doesn't just change you, it changes everyone around you. Your family, your friends, your co-workers. They feel your calm, your clarity. You become a light in their storm. But resilience isn't just about you standing strong. It's about how your strength lifts others. It's about the relationships you build, the trust you earn, the legacy you leave. That's where we're going next. How your emotional control transforms the people in the world around you. Who in your life would trust you more if you stayed calm under pressure? Raise your hand if you've ever seen someone's steady presence change a room. Maybe a parent, a boss, or a friend. We've talked about mastering the understanding your triggers and building resilience to stand strong. But your emotional control doesn't stop with you. It's like a stone dropped in a pond, sending ripples that touch everyone around you. Your family, your friends, your co-workers, even strangers. When you choose not to react, you don't just save yourself. You transform relationships and become a leader, whether you're in a boardroom or a living room. Let's talk about how your calm creates trust, builds bridges, and shapes a legacy that lasts. Think about the last time someone's reaction hurt you. A harsh word, a cold shoulder, a rash decision. Now think about the opposite. Someone who listened, stayed steady, and responded with clarity. Which one made you feel safe? Which one made you want to follow them? That's the power of not reacting. It's not about being silent or weak. It's about choosing responses that build instead of break. I knew a woman named Clara, a manager in a high-pressure office. Her team was falling apart. Arguments, missed deadlines, low morale. One day, 2 employees got into a shouting match in a meeting. Clara's instinct was to snap, to shut it down. But she'd been practicing. She took a breath, waited, and said, "Let's each share one thing we need to move forward." That moment changed everything. Her team saw her as a rock, someone they could trust. Morale improved, and so did results. Clara's didn't just stop a fight, it built a team. Relationships thrive on trust, and trust grows when you show you're in control. When you don't react, you're saying, "I'm here, I'm listening, and I'm not going anywhere." That's gold in any relationship. I knew a couple, Sam and Lena, who were on the brink of splitting up. Sam had a temper. Lena would shut down. Every fight was a dead end. Then Sam started working on himself. He learned to when Lena's silence triggered him. Instead of yelling, he'd say, "I feel like we're stuck. Can we talk this out?" That shift opened the door. Lena started opening up, and they rebuilt their marriage. Sam's calm didn't just save his relationship. It showed Lena she was safe to be herself. That's the ripple effect. Your control creates space for others to grow. Let's try something. Think of one person in your life, a spouse, a child, a friend. How would your relationship with them change if you stopped reacting to their triggers? Maybe your teenager's attitude sets you off, or your coworker's slacking makes you fume. Now imagine pausing, choosing a response that shows you're steady. What would that do for them? For you, hold that thought. That's you seeing the ripple before it starts. Now let's talk leadership. You don't need a title to be a leader. Leadership is influence. And influence comes from how you handle pressure. Reactive leaders, whether they're parents, coaches, or CEOs, create chaos. They make rash calls, burn bridges, and lose respect. But leaders who don't react, they're the ones people follow. I knew a man named Victor, a high school basketball coach. His team was talented but undisciplined, always bickering. During a close game, a star player ignored his play and cost them the win. The old Victor would have chewed him out in front of everyone. Instead, he pulled the player aside later and said, "You're better than that. Let's work on trust." That player became the team's anchor, and they won the championship. Victor's calm didn't just win a game, it shaped young men who still look up to him. Leadership isn't about being the loudest, it's about being the steadiest. When you don't react, you show people they can count on you. You create clarity in confusion, hope in conflict. That's why the best leaders think of the ones you admire. Stay calm when everyone else is losing it. They're not superhuman. They've just learned to choose responses that align with their goals. You can do that too. Whether you're leading a family, a team, or just yourself, your calm is your power. Here's a tool: active listening. When someone's upset, a customer, a kid, a colleague, don't jump to fix or fight. Listen, really listen. Nod. Repeat what they say. Ask questions. I knew a store manager named Aisha who dealt with angry customers daily. One day a man stormed in, yelling about a faulty product. Instead of arguing, Aisha listened, said, "I hear how frustrating this is. Let's find a solution." The man calmed down, became a loyal customer, and told everyone about her. Aisha's listening didn't just solve a problem, it built a reputation. Try it. Next time someone's upset, listen and reflect their words. It's you turning conflict into connection. Another tool is empathetic response. When you understand someone's feelings, you can respond without escalating. I knew a principal named David who had to handle a parent furious about a teacher's decision. His instinct was to defend the teacher, but he said, "I can see how much you care about your child's education. Let's figure this out together." That parent went from an adversary to an ally. Empathy doesn't mean agreeing. It means showing you get it. Try this. When someone triggers you, and ask what's driving them, then respond to their emotion, not just their words. That's you building a bridge instead of a wall. Let's talk about boundaries, because not reacting doesn't mean being a doormat. Boundaries are how you protect your peace while respecting others. I knew a woman named Maria, a nurse who worked with a demanding doctor. His curt tone used to ruin her day. Then she set a boundary. She'd then say calmly, "I'm happy to help, but I need us to communicate respectfully." It took courage, but it worked. The doctor softened, and Maria felt empowered. Boundaries aren't about control, they're about clarity. Think of someone who pushes your buttons. What's one boundary you could set? Maybe it's saying, "I need a minute before we continue," or "Let's keep this respectful." Practice it in your mind. That's you claiming your space. Now let's get real about the cost of reacting in relationships. Every time you snap, shut down, or lash out, you chip away at trust. A harsh word to a child, a cold reply to a spouse, a rash email to a colleague. It adds up. I knew a man who lost his best friend because he couldn't stop arguing over small things. One heated moment too many, and the friendship was gone. That's the tragedy of reaction. It feels justified in the moment, but it leaves scars. And in leadership, reactive leaders breed fear, not loyalty. Teams scatter, morale tanks, and progress stalls. The reward, though, it's connection. When you don't react, you create safety. People open up, share ideas, take risks. Your spouse feels heard, your kids feel seen, your team feels valued. And as a leader, your calm becomes a magnet. People follow you, not because they have to, but because they want to. I knew a community organizer named Jamal, who united a divided neighborhood. When tempers flared at meetings, He'd listen and redirect the energy. His calm brought people together, and they built a park that's still there today. That's leadership, not forcing, but inspiring. Let's try an exercise. Think of a relationship that's strained, maybe with a family member or coworker. What's one thing you could do differently next time you're triggered? Maybe it's listening. Instead of arguing or setting a boundary with kindness, commit to it. Write it down or tell someone. Raise your hand if you're ready to try. That's you starting the ripple. That's you choosing connection over conflict. Another story, a father named Tom, whose teenage daughter was pulling away. Every time she snapped at him, he'd snap back and the gap grew. Then he started practicing. When she rolled her eyes, he'd take a breath and say, "I'm here when you want to talk." It took months, but she started coming to him again. One night she shared her fears about school and they cried together. Tom's calm didn't just rebuild their bond, it gave his daughter a safe place to land. That's the ripple effect. One choice, one transformed relationship. In leadership, the stakes are even higher. I knew a CEO named Rachel whose company was in crisis. Investors were panicking. Employees were jumping ship. Her instinct was to make big promises or point fingers. Instead, she met with her team, listened to their fears, and laid out a clear plan. Her calm steadied the ship. The company turned around, and her team still talks about her as the leader who saved them. That's what not reacting does. It turns chaos into clarity, doubt into direction. Here's one more tool: the response delay. When emotions run high, give yourself time. If it's a heated conversation, say, "Let's revisit this tomorrow." If it's a big decision, sleep on it. I knew a lawyer named Priya who used this to handle tough negotiations. When a client pushed her buttons, she'd say, "I'll get back to you by morning." That delay let her choose responses that won deals and respect. Try it. Next time you're tempted to react, buy time. It's you staying in the driver's seat. The beauty of not reacting is that it's contagious. Your calm spreads. Your family learns to talk instead of yell. Your team learns to solve instead of blame. Your community learns to build instead of tear down. You become a beacon, showing others what's possible. And that's not just about today. It's about the legacy you leave, the people you influence, the trust you build, the lives you touch. But this isn't the end. Controlling your emotions isn't just about relationships or leadership. It's about living a life that's bigger than the moment. It's about aligning your choices with your purpose, your dreams, your vision. That's where we're going next. How not reacting sets you free to live with intention and impact. What's the one dream you'd chase if you knew you could stay steady through any storm? Raise your hand if you've ever felt like your emotions held you back from the life you really want. We've talked about mastering the understanding your triggers, building resilience, and creating ripples that transform relationships and leadership. But all of this, every breath, every choice, every habit, leads to something bigger. It's about living with purpose, aligning your life with what matters most, and reaping the long-term rewards of emotional mastery. When you control your reactions, you're not just surviving the moment, you're building a life of clarity, impact, and peace. Let's talk about how not reacting sets you free to chase your dreams and leave a legacy that echoes beyond your years. Imagine a life where you're not jerked around by every frustration, every slight, every setback. A life where you wake up each day knowing you're in charge, not of the world, but of yourself. That's what emotional mastery gives you. It's not about never feeling angry or afraid. It's about choosing what those feelings do to you. It's about saying, "I'm bigger than this moment, and I'm headed somewhere that matters." I knew a woman named Sophia, a scientist working on a cure for a rare disease. Her lab faced constant setbacks, failed experiments, funding cuts, skeptical colleagues. The old Sophia would have burned out, lashing out or giving up, but she'd learned to anchor herself in her purpose, saving lives. When a major grant fell through, she took a breath, rallied her team, and found another way. Years later, her work saved thousands. Sophia's calm didn't just keep her sane, it kept her dream alive. Purpose is your compass. It's the reason you get up, the fire that keeps you going. But without emotional control, that compass spins wild. Every trigger, every reaction pulls you off course. Emotional mastery is what keeps you steady, letting you focus on the big picture, your values, your goals, your legacy. Let's try something. Think of one thing that gives your life meaning. Maybe it's your family, your faith, a cause you believe in, or a dream you've held since you were young. Got it? Write it down, or hold it in your mind. That's your North Star. Every time you choose not to react, you're stepping closer to that star. Let's talk about a man named Daniel, an artist who wanted to create work that inspired hope. He faced rejection after rejection. Galleries turned him down, critics dismissed him. It stung, and he used to spiral, doubting his talent. But he started practicing the tools we've discussed, pausing, journaling his triggers, meditating to stay grounded. When a major show rejected him, he didn't crumble. He reminded himself of his purpose to uplift others and kept painting. One day, a small gallery took a chance on him. His work touched thousands, and he's now known for pieces that heal hearts. Daniel's emotional mastery didn't just make him a better artist. It made him a light in the world. Emotional control frees you to focus on what lasts. Think about the energy you waste on impulsive reactions, arguing over small slights, stewing over mistakes, worrying about things you can't change. What if you could redirect that energy to your purpose? I knew a woman named Amina, a teacher who dreamed of opening a school for underserved kids. Her days were chaos, unruly students, demanding parents, endless paperwork. She used to snap under the pressure, losing sight of her goal. Then she built habits, morning gratitude to stay focused, evening walks to clear her mind. When a parent criticized her harshly, she listened and responded with kindness. That calm earned her allies, and her dream school opened last year. Amina's mastery didn't just change her, it changed a community. Here's a tool: the purpose check. When you're triggered, ask yourself, does reacting serve my purpose? If your purpose is to be a loving parent, does yelling at your kid move you closer? If it's to build a career, does snapping at a colleague help? This question is your filter. It's you aligning your choices with your dreams. Try it now. Think of a recent moment when you reacted. Did it serve your purpose? If not, what could you do differently next time? That's you learning to steer by your North Star. Another tool is vision mapping. Write down your biggest dream. Say starting a business, strengthening your family, or serving a cause. Then list 3 things you can do this week to move toward it. Maybe it's researching a market, having a real talk with your spouse, or volunteering an hour. Now here's the key. When life triggers you, look at that list. Let it remind you what's at stake. I knew a man named Carlos, a recovering addict who wanted to help others get clean. Triggers were everywhere: stress, old friends, doubt. He kept a note in his pocket: speak at a recovery center, mentor one person, stay sober today. When temptation hit, he'd read it and choose his purpose. He's now a counselor, saving lives. That's vision mapping, keeping your eyes on the prize. Let's talk about the cost of not mastering your emotions. Every reaction that pulls you off course steals time, energy, and opportunity. It's like a leak in a boat, small at first, but it sinks you if you don't fix it. I knew a man who dreamed of writing a novel but let frustration derail him. Every rejection, every bad day sent him into a funk, and he'd stop writing. Years passed, and the book stayed unwritten. That's the tragedy of reaction. It doesn't just hurt the moment, it robs your future. Your dreams deserve better. Your purpose deserves better. The reward, though, it's a life that feels whole. When you control your emotions, you're not just reacting to life, you're shaping it. You're making choices that reflect who you are and what you stand for. You're building something that lasts: relationships, achievements, a legacy. I knew a woman named Grace, a humanitarian who worked in crisis zones. The stress was relentless: danger, bureaucracy, heartbreak. But she'd learned to anchor herself in her purpose, helping the helpless. When a relief mission failed, she didn't despair. She regrouped, found new partners, and saved lives. Grace's calm didn't just keep her going. It inspired a generation of aid workers. That's the reward of emotional mastery, a life that matters. Let's try an exercise. Imagine yourself 10 years from now, living your purpose. What do you see? Are you leading a thriving business, raising confident kids, serving a cause? Hold that image. Now ask, what's one habit from this talk? Pausing, journaling, gratitude, that could get you there. Commit to it. Raise your hand if you're ready to start today. That's you planting a seed for your future. That's you choosing a life of impact. Emotional mastery also brings peace. Not the absence of problems, but the confidence that you can handle them. It's the quiet strength of knowing you're not at the mercy of your feelings or the world's chaos. I knew a man named Ravi, a small business owner whose shop nearly went under. Customers complained, suppliers failed, and stress was his shadow. But he'd built resilience, daily walks, self-talk, a clear vision. When a big client walked away, he reminded himself of his purpose to provide for his family and pivoted to new markets. His shop survived, and so did his peace. Ravi's mastery didn't just save his business, it gave him a life he could live with pride. Another tool, the legacy lens. Ask yourself, what do I want to be remembered for? Maybe it's kindness, courage, or service. Let that guide your responses. When someone triggers you, think, is this how I want to be remembered? I knew a woman named Elena, a community leader who wanted to be remembered for unity. When a neighbor spread rumors about her, she didn't retaliate. She paused, invited the neighbor for coffee, and listened. They became allies, and her community grew stronger. Elena's legacy wasn't just her projects, it was her calm in the face of conflict. Try it. Write down one word you want to define your legacy. Let it shape your choices. Let's talk about self-discipline, because purpose and emotional mastery go hand in hand with it. Discipline is saying no to reactions that derail you and yes to habits that build you. It's choosing to meditate when you're stressed, to listen when you want to argue, to keep going when you want to quit. I knew a young man named Jamal, a musician with a temper that cost him gigs. He wanted to be known for his art, not his output. He started small, breathing exercises, a gratitude journal, a vision of playing sold-out shows. When a club owner criticized him, he thanked them for the feedback and improved. His career took off, and so did his pride. Discipline turned his purpose into reality. Here's a challenge. Pick one discipline from this talk. Maybe it's the purpose check, vision mapping, or the legacy lens. Practice it for 30 days. Track your progress. Tell someone to keep you accountable. That's you building the muscle of mastery. That's you living your purpose, not just dreaming it. The long-term rewards of emotional mastery are endless. It's the confidence of knowing you can face anything. It's the joy of relationships built on trust, not conflict. It's the pride of achievements earned through steady effort. And it's the peace of a life aligned with your values. You become a force, not because you're loud, but because you're steady, focused, purposeful. And that force ripples out, touching lives you may never know. One more story. A man named Thomas, a carpenter who wanted to teach his craft to kids. He faced doubts, his own, his family's, the world's, but he'd mastered his emotions. When a workshop fell apart, he didn't quit, leaned on his habits, and found new students. Those kids now build homes, and they credit Thomas. His purpose wasn't just woodworking. It was showing others they could create something lasting. That's the legacy of emotional mastery. A life that lifts others long after you're gone. Let's end with a call to action. You've got the tools. Trigger awareness, resilience habits, relationship skills, and a vision for your purpose. Pick one habit, one question, one discipline. Start today. Maybe it's pausing before you speak, writing your purpose, or listening to someone you love. Commit to it. Raise your hand if you're ready to live with purpose, to master your emotions, to build a life that matters. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. Your calm, your choices, your purpose, they're yours to claim. Go make them count.